Hi, my name is Joanna Whitney. I am an intuitive artist, a student of natural law, and an energy healer. And we're reading the Kybalion by the Three Initiates right now. And we're in chapter 10, the Law of Polarity. And I'm going to take my time through this chapter because the Law of Polarity is happening constantly in this society. And I think it's really important to talk about it very slowly so that if people, because this book is very abstract, but it's always best to try to find examples of what they're talking about in here. And polarity is just something that it's a constant, because actually the dark occult Luciferians running the show around here are constantly trying to keep us polarized into one side of the brain or the other side, the left side or the right side. They want us focused either on being all math-minded and fact-minded, or they want us to be in a dreamy state, because either one will keep the mind unbalanced. We'll be stuck in the reptilian brain or in the emotional brain, and we'll have an unbalanced neocortex as a result of being polarized. And then we won't make good decisions. We won't be able to use higher ordered thinking. We won't be able to use the trivium to think through our problems, gathering all the evidence, processing it slowly, using intuition, using apophatic inquiry and deduction, reasoning it out to come up with an answer to our problems. They want us to just Google it so they can feed us the answer. We won't know how to think. We will need to always know what to think, which means someone else will act as an authority and try to tell us what to think. So, you have to recognize polarity as it's happening in your life. And I've taken a few notes, and I'm going to read the Kybalion, and then I'm going to try to just share about some experiences I've had recently with polarity. And I am also going to read from William Walker Atkinson's book, the Arcane series, which I believe is part of the series of books written about these principles, and or the Arcane Teachings, it's called. There's a whole chapter on polarity in there and how to his point of view on how to use the law of polarity. So excuse me, I'm going to take some time with this. It's going to take me a while to get through this chapter because I want to be thorough about it. The chapter itself is only several pages long, but I want to take this opportunity to really get into this because it's so relevant. Okay. So the book says everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. The Kybalion. The great fourth Hermetic principle, the principle of polarity, embodies the truth that all manifested things have two sides, two aspects, two poles, a pair of opposites, with manifold degrees between the two extremes. So what that makes me think of, you may have all heard this saying, there's always three sides to every story, his, hers, and the truth. So that statement, that saying, encompasses the two poles, but it also encompasses the state of neutrality, which is my point of view on how to deal with polarity. Not necessarily William Walker Atkinson or the Three Initiates point of view on how to do it. But there's three sides to every story. His, hers, and the truth means that there is unity consciousness always in every situation. Therefore, his and her story are in duality, and the truth is in unity. So I want to get up into unity consciousness so I can see the truth. I can see both sides of the story, and then I can find neutrality. Now, we just read that all truths are half-truths. Yes, that's true if you're in duality. But if you can get into neutrality, the truth, you can use spiritual principles to weigh out what the actual truth is in the situation, and then be able to, make the best decisions possible as a result of getting into alignment with capital T truth rather than the half truths, which are really perceptions. Half truths is my perception and your perception, my truth and your truth, which isn't the truth. My truth is half the truth. Your truth is half the truth, and the truth sees everything. So if I'm only operating from my truth, the half truth, then it's likely that I'm going to be polarized into my perception, and then I'll end up like never being satisfied with anything. Let's see what else it says here. The old paradoxes which have ever perplexed the minds of men are explained by an understanding of this principle. Man has always recognized something akin to this principle and has endeavored to express it by such sayings, maxims, and aphorisms as the following. Everything is and isn't at the same time. All truths are but half-truths. Every truth is half false. There are two sides to everything. There is a reverse side to every shield, etc., etc. The Hermetic teachings are to the effect that the difference between things seemingly diametrically opposed to each other is merely a matter of degree. It teaches that the pairs of opposites may be reconciled, and that thesis and antithesis are identical in nature but different in degree, and that the universal reconciliation of opposites is effected by a recognition of this principle of polarity. The teachers claim that illustrations of this principle may be had on every hand and from an examination into the real nature of anything. They begin by showing that spirit and matter are but the two poles of the same thing, that the intermediate planes being merely degrees of vibration. They show that the all and the many are the same, the difference being merely a matter of degree of mental manifestation. Thus, the law and laws are the two opposite poles of one thing. Likewise, principle, all capitalized, and principles, infinite mind and finite minds. I think I'm going to pause there because that brought up so many things that I'm going to talk about some other things now. My notes, for example. So they have a different solution to this idea of two poles than I do. My solution is neutrality, finding neutrality, neither endorsing or opposing any cause, which means that I attempt to see both sides of the situation. So let's just take an example, right? Let's say you're married and you get into a situation with your partner where they get triggered and you get triggered at the same time. And suddenly you go into a state of a childhood state where you're polarized into this trauma, and they're also in reaction polarized in the trauma. And what that might look like, I'm just going to give an example. Let's say, I'm driving my husband somewhere, and I've pulled into a parking spot, and while we were in the store, I got surrounded by other cars, and now it's hard for me to back out of that parking spot. So he starts to criticize my driving, let's say. Then I get triggered into childhood trauma of being criticized, and I can no longer function, and I can no longer think clearly, and I can't get out of the parking spot. And then he is also traumatized because he knows how to get out of the parking spot, and he, for some reason, can't just say, why don't you let me drive and get us out of the parking spot? So suddenly we're in this polarization. He's on one side and I'm on the other, let's say. And so because I'm studying these principles, I have to be the bigger person in that situation. And I have to decide that I'm not going to remain polarized in this traumatic reaction. He may remain polarized in his traumatic reaction, but I'm not going to stay there. I'm going to, and you go through a period of like seconds where you wish you could get out of it, but you can't get out of it. So, but the thing to do in that moment is to quell the desire to duke it out verbally and have a total blowout about something that doesn't matter and isn't even happening in the present moment, by rising into that state of neutrality, neither endorsing, meaning agreeing with that you're a terrible driver and he's right, you're a terrible driver, or opposing, getting into a huge fight in which you attack him about every other thing that you hate about him, dredging up the past and all that, all the things you could do in a situation like that. So you refrain from either endorsing or opposing his his polarity by rising into a state of neutrality. And it's very difficult. Yes, as you have that surge of volcanic energy shoot up through your body where you want to, just let them have it with a bunch of swear words. You just have to pause and decide that you're not going to fall prey to the law of polarity. Instead, you're going to rise up into unity consciousness and calm down in whatever way, using whatever techniques you're developing as a result of looking into these principles. There's so many techniques of mentalism that have already been offered, through, Initiation into Hermetics by Franz Bardon, or Kundalini Yoga, Qigong, other meditative practices. This is when you actually have to use these methods in this heated moment where you want to, just have both of you polarized into opposite corners and you get to like spew all your creative energy on each other. Well, the reality of the situation is you can like ruin your relationship at this moment. You could kill the goodness that you have together if you succumb to the temptation of getting off on venting anger in a state of polarity. So it's an opportunity to recognize the law of polarity at work and practice going into neutrality at that moment. And, the thing is that by doing that, you will be gaining so much spiritual strength. You will receive so many gifts from that action. You will be building spiritual muscle. And the next time this happens, you'll be much stronger. And each time it happens, you'll become stronger and stronger. As I said, if you choose not to take advantage of these opportunities, you could totally ruin a relationship in a split second for no reason. But mainly because we're not taught how to do it. So many relationships can be pummeled to death by people who are polarized, venting anger in that moment. So that's one example of how to use the law of polarity. Another example is if you have a friend who proves that they're not actually your friend and they screw you over, let's say. But you all are on social media together, and you don't want to get off the social media channel that you're on together, but you recognize that this person isn't a real friend, and the person is angry at you because you recognize that they're not a real friend and that you're not going to take the bait of what they put out there. But because they're angry, they're going to continue to throw out polarizing opportunities. Like, for example, if you post something and they just reply and dig at you, that is them taking your neutral statement and turning it into a polarizing statement. And maybe you'll feel that surge of volcanic energy shoot through your body and you'll want to attack them. That when you do that, then you will fall off of the neutrality and suddenly put yourself in the polarizing stance, which they will win because they're the one who tempted you into the polarization in the first place. But if you don't respond, then you will win because they will be stuck. They will have thrown out their bait and you will not bite. So they will not receive the rush of energy that they are looking for from trying to make a polarizing situation out of a situation that was neutral. In a situation like that, that would be my goal, to never take the bait from that person. Because if I've decided that I'm no longer in relationship with them, that person is not worth my time and energy, then I have to quit fighting with them. Maybe the relationship went that this is an example of, and both of these examples, I guess, could be love and hate. At one time you love the person, now you hate the person. But you can move into a state of neutrality about the person. And you can still secretly hate their guts if you want, but act out of neutrality and don't allow them to create polarization. this is just an incredible practice to get into. Because let's say there's other obvious polarizations like Democrat and Republican. That's a very obvious polarization. How many other millions of things have they got us polarized about? Oh, like how about football teams, sports teams, right? That's a total rigged game. How do I know? Because there's so much money involved now at this point. It can't possibly be by chance or by athletic ability. It is definitely rigged. So people are polarized into either opposing teams and their team or whatever. And they actually fight with each other over something that is rigged. That is total mind control, right? You know, I grew up partially in Oakland, California, and the Oakland Raiders were the team. This is a really good example of this because now they've been sold to some other city. I don't know what it is, honestly, because I don't care. But the Oakland Raider fans, whenever the Raiders would win a game, would actually burn down their own town. Talk about being polarized into destroying their own homes. I mean, this is out of control mind manipulation that we're under. And basically, how you can recognize that you're headed into a polarized situation is if you feel like you're right. I'm right. Well, if you feel like you're right and you have to prove a point, you're about to head into a polarized state. And that it's a weak, it feels really good. It feels strong. Self-righteous indignation is one of the most fun waves to ride. But the truth of it is that the back end of self-righteous indignation is self-loathing. And there is a lag time, maybe about 3 hours. So what goes up must come down. That's another polarity. And so if you allow yourself to engage in the fun of being polarized in one side, then you'll have to deal with the opposite side. Me personally, I prefer to stay neutral because when I'm neutral, I have complete control of the situation and I can think clearly and rationally. So if I have a situation like I had with my partner about the driving thing, once I attain that state of neutrality, I decide that I will wait 24 hours before we discuss it. 24 hours. And that, it seems like an eternity, but at some point after I have, done one of my meditation exercises and really gotten much more stable, and that makes small talk to break the ice. And then we basically psychically put the polarized situation on the shelf until the next day. And what happens is that we each might come up with some intuitive inspiration on how to handle situations like that in the future so that we don't have to indulge our mind-controlled polarization mechanism. And we can continue to work on the trauma, trying to, remove trapped emotions or however you want to deal with whatever the traumatic situation is. But 24 hours later, when everybody's calm, then you can talk about it using I statements, I feel, or whatever. Or you just know, that you just had a misunderstanding. And you may come up with, like I said, a brilliant solution for the next time. And then you won't fall prey to the law of polarity. You will have risen above it into a state of neutrality. So, yeah, so the one thing I didn't mention, which is the most important thing, I can't believe I forgot to mention this, how to get into a state of neutrality. Prayer, okay? You're in that moment where you realize that you're polarized. Now, realizing that you're polarized comes as a result of meditation, becoming aware of yourself, paying attention to yourself, your insides, your breathing, your stomach, how your stomach feels, how different parts of your body feel throughout the day. You begin to recognize when you feel polarized and what that feels like. And once you get a hold of that, the ways to get into a state of neutrality are to pray. God, please help me right now. I need help right now. Oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. Like that. Or to also see the other person's point of view. I actually have that gift to be able to put myself in another person's shoes. This is how to get into unity consciousness, out of the duality. So in other words, look again. Let's look again at the law of mentalism. So the all is mental. The all is the all. I am in the all, and the all is in me. I am not the all, but I am in the all, and the all is in me, means that I have access to the all, which is the highest high frequency, the highest frequency, higher than me, way higher than me, but it is in me and I am in it. Therefore, upon recognizing that, I can merge with it. I can ask it for help. However, that feels right to you. Like I said, I would just, like, what I would do is just say, God, please help me. I would feel the bottom fall out, knowing that I have just gone into a state of polarization and I need help. I'm not going to try to get myself out of it myself. I'm going to pray for help. That's one way. The second way, like I said, is to put myself in the other person's shoes. Of course, that requires more thought. And in a moment like this, when you're polarized and the surge of energy happens and you want to just attack, that my half-truth wants to attack their half-truth. I may not have time to put myself into their shoes, but in that 24-hour period that I'm going to take before reacting to them, then I can try to see where it is that I have done the things that I am mentally accusing them of doing. Once I can see that, then I have risen into a state of neutrality, because if I have done what I'm accusing them of doing, then I can't be angry at them anymore. I mean, you can, but it's ridiculous because, you're pointing the finger at them and 3 fingers are pointing back at you. So, I would always recommend praying first. Praying is the thing I do. And I don't know why I didn't say anything about that, but it's just so automatic to me that I just didn't mention it. But that is what I would do first. And any time I feel that polarization happen, I pray first. And that's another reason why I say that I don't think my way of doing this is the same as the 3 initiates, because they don't really mention that. They talk about another whole other way of doing this, where you are mentally choosing the opposite pole or whatever, which we'll get into that, with the arcane teachings or whatever. But for someone like myself, I find praying for access to that higher force, power from the higher power, is the best solution to this situation. Until next time.